Game over, man. Game over.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Welcome to episode 622 for February 2nd, 2025, and I'm Jaden Duran.
And I'm Brendan Cassidy.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody, for this week's show. It is bound to be a doozy. It was not at all what we had planned on doing this week.
Spontaneity, man. Spontaneity.
But this week's past events dictated a new course, and therefore we had to bring back the great, the wonderful Ryan McQuade. He is back. He's joining us again because, oh boy, are there awards shenanigans to talk about. So, Ryan, thanks for being back, my friend.
Don't call it a comeback. It's been only a week.
It's only been a week. Only been a week.
I don't think there's any comeback from what we're about to talk about.
Well,
yeah.
Oh boy. Well,
yeah.
That's very true.
So,
Brendan.
what's interesting about it, and there's a little bit of a tie-in with Ryan being here.
Yeah.
Originally, Brendan and I had planned for this episode to be a David Lynch retrospective. We have watched all of his films aside from Twin Peaks, and we were going to talk about the great, the wonderful David Lynch, do a little retrospective on his filmography. And so there's a little bit of a ironic twist with Ryan coming back, because for those that have listened to the show for a long time, when Ryan and Jay were here and holding down the fort on the old extra film format, Ryan and Jay, I forget which year it was. Maybe Ryan, you can help me figure out which year it was, but you guys did a David Lynch or David Lynch movie series, excuse me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which was really
we
fun.
Did. We did. That was, I believe, 2022, 2021, maybe.
I was going to say that was one of the earliest ones, wasn't it?
I would say it was 21. I can look it up here in a second when I am prepared.
Yeah. I did not look it up before.
We're putting you on the spot right now. You're supposed to know these things.
I know I should know them right offhand. I actually have them written on the wall over there.
You've got him tattooed on you as well.
Commandments. Yeah, it's like a Prison Break sort of situation. Like this tattoo means this movie series. Yeah, I was totally scared to do that series. Just up front, I was intimidated by the idea and sort of the imagery of some of the films that I'd seen, and I thought that they would give me nightmares for the rest of my life. And I also just thought too that David Lynch was such a smart filmmaker, and I'm a big dum-dum. So I just thought that wasn't going to work. And Jay basically said, "No, we're doing it." And we did.
When Jay's passionate about something, you usually can't talk him down.
I usually cave, because 9 times out of 10, it usually means something great's about to happen in my life. I think
okay.
No, I mean, in terms of film discovery, when Jay has suggested a series, I go with it, because I think then that becomes honestly some of the more rewarding ones than even the ones I pick half the time, because
fair.
There's ones that I'm very curious about, but I think you guys know this from working together long enough. You guys know that your co-host knows you the best and what your tendencies are, and the type of movies that I think can provoke interesting discussions.
Yeah.
And if not, if you guys don't know that about each other, you probably should start figuring that out.
No, we have the same brain. We often joke about that.
I know. No, honestly, it's transferred. You have to wait, do you have to write it out like a time card, or in the library of the brain? Are you
Oh yeah, we have to check it out and actually toss it back and forth. I actually have my brain.
Are there late fees?
My brain is on layaway right now, JD. It's going to be in the mail pretty soon. So
that's
just
okay. Is it overnighted, or who pays?
Oh, it's got to be overnight. Yeah, we have a show tomorrow that we're recording.
You listeners out there, you really don't care about anything. But no, we did it in truly God, I really don't want to cry here on a show with you guys. That's for Jay to do. But like I got very emotional when I heard about David Lynch passing, and the first
we did as well.
The first person I texted was Jay, like straight up. The first
Don't blame
person
you.
I told, and yeah, I'm so grateful for you guys. For you obviously know how much I love you guys, and how grateful I am for you guys to let us have had the show and be able to switch that format. Honestly, originally that was not the format that we were doing, and to switch to the movie series format, it means a lot. Because now we wouldn't have the show that we have now currently.
Sure.
Without it. But doing that Lynch series was phenomenal. I would say there's two series that we've done that are like foundational movie watching series that I kind of like changed the way I see certain modern films. One of them is the David Lynch series, and the other was the Powell and Pressburger series. I really thought that those two series were incredible. So yes, that's a long way to say, yeah, we did that.
You did that. And I looked it up. It was 2021 that you guys did that series.
Okay. So yeah, pretty early on.
Yep. Yeah. And you can go and check that out at InSessionFilm.com.
Please listen to it. There's probably some really good episodes on there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's also, and sorry for the listeners and JD, because you're just going to have to remember me saying this. The second person I texted was Eric Anderson, my editor in chief and boss over at Awards Watch. And I sadly texted him, JD, you know what I texted him? Hashtag 4K titties. If you remember the Mulholland Drive episode on the series.
Yep, I remember that now.
Eric uttered maybe the greatest phrase in InSession film history. By the way, those t-shirts are on their way, folks.
I'm so sad I haven't got around. I'm gonna have to get on that.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder, Ryan.
You're welcome. Because who could forget about them? 4K
titties.
There you go.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
that whole episode is just wild. Like it's truly one of the most wild episodes.
It's fitting for the movie. Fitting for the movie y'all are discussing.
It really is. Like Mulholland Drive is on 4K, and you can see him.
and yeah, there may or may not be some titties.
Yeah, there may be some.
Exactly. David Lynch,
discussion over Spielberg also handing the palm to Blue is the Warmest Color on that episode. Truly one of the most wild things Eric's ever done on a podcast. And I apologize. Actually, I don't apologize.
No, you don't apologize. No, that's an endorsement.
That's how I knew we were winning on that series. We were like, I was like, yeah. This is this anybody that does a David Lynch series. But
only good things will happen.
What a trip down memory lane that was. That was so good. So if that's not an incentive to go listen to that series, I don't know what is. There you go.
Just like really made everybody like lean in their car.
Like, what? What is this? What? 4K titties?
What did he say? 4K titties? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Who's the audience listening to this show? I
know. Well, maybe there's a new audience now.
Thanks, Ryan, for coming back.
Mom, that guest said 4K titties. You know what I mean?
Right, all of a sudden, the show is slammed with a PG-13 rating.
Yeah. You knew ahead of time. As soon as I mentioned Ryan
Here in
McQuade's
Session
name,
Film, I listened to your latest episode, and the man on there speaking about the 4K titties must be stopped. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
It's like, why does this reviewer just sound like a mustache twirling villain right now?
It probably is. It probably is.
Which,
and
speaking
for that,
of, we'll
say
get
hello
to that here in a moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice transition.
Exactly. But I do want to note that we will have that David Lynch retrospective next week, assuming that this shit doesn't get even more crazy and we have to get to a part 3. It's a bit of possible.
There's a bit of an asterisk with that statement, right, Katie?
Yes. I guess I shouldn't throw out any guarantees. But the plan is to do David Lynch next week. We'll see what happens. The moment you kick on 623, if you see Ryan's face, you know it's been a week.
I think the Oscars have literally been canceled.
Yeah.
And I would be like, I'm here for a third week in a row, and I'm delaying the inevitable.
Oscars get canceled for that one, then
Crazy.
third time's the charm, I guess. Your appearance.
There you
series.
go. I've been trying for years to get
To get the Oscar ceremony canceled one year.
Yeah, I'd like a week off in March. You know what I mean?
I'd be down.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if we can stop turning art into sports, I think that'd be a win overall.
Yeah, it's not going to
anyway.
happen.
Not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen at all.
We're going to get to the Oscars drama here in just a second. Before we do, I want to say a big thank you to Lionel Diaz, who is our newest patron over at Patreon. So I want to say a big shout out, big thank you to Lionel for supporting us over there on Patreon. Really does mean the world to us. If you want to support us on Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/InSessionFilm. And thank you to Lionel for signing up over there. We really, really do appreciate it. Okay, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the latest Oscars
Where do we
drama.
start?
You are all familiar with this. If you're listening to this show and you're in the film space, you know that this week the headlines were dominated by Karla Sofía Gascón, who was, of course, nominated for Best Actress for Emilia Perez. And people have discovered old tweets of hers that were, we'll say, not great. Not great.
Not good, Bob.
By any stretch of the imagination. And instead of, apologizing and taking responsibility for said racist tweets, all she's done the entire week is double down on not taking responsibility. And we're going to talk about not just that, we'll get into how it could affect the Oscars voting, which I don't believe has begun yet. Is that correct, Ryan? The final voting has not begun yet.
No.
Okay, so this could have a major effect. We shall see. As we get into it, we'll start with you, Ryan. I want to get your overall thoughts on what the hell happened this week and what kind of trouble could Emilia Perez be in as it relates to the Oscars.
The second part is as complex as the first part.
Okay.
But I'll try my best to answer both of them. So what happened this week, what seems from my perspective that happened this week, and this could be a little bit different, but maybe you guys saw it differently, but this is how I saw it. So the beginning of the week, which is or midweek, I guess you could say, not even a full week after the Oscar nominations had been announced, there were these dueling interviews that surfaced online from director Jacques Audiard speaking about Mexico and Mexico was the reason why he picked the culture and the area of Mexico to do his film as opposed to being in France or Europe is because that is a place and a language of poor people.
Yeah,
right?
poor and migrants. I think he said something along those lines.
It was how do you say, extremely offensive. And as someone that is Latino, and as you guys know, I've always advocated for Latino representation in film, queer representation in film, just different perspectives in film is always what we advocate for. This was the polar opposite of that and really pissed me off. But I didn't have enough time to and I think most people had enough time to really get angry at that and really show the outrage towards that. Because at the same time, there was an interview that came out with Karla Sofía Gascón, who is the titular Emilia Perez in Emilia Perez, and now the first openly trans woman to be nominated for Best Actress at the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
She made a comment about how she has felt, and she's been doing this most of the season, commenting about online fan bases, specifically the one with Fernando Torres and I'm Still Here. And it seemed to be the way she worded it and the way it was transcribed, that she was implicating that either the fan base or potentially people that know Torres.
Yeah. Kind of like her PR firm, essentially. Right?
Yeah. But that was essentially trying to sabotage online Karla's name.
Which is a big no-no. That's a big no-no according to Academy rules. That is something you can't do.
Sort of the Andrea Riseborough campaigning that happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That allowed her to get into the race, and through sort of smear campaigns and screwed over like Daniel Deadweiler and Viola Davis and others.
Yeah.
So
and do people even remember that movie? I don't even remember the name of that movie that Andrew Riseborough was nominated for.
Leslie.
To Leslie, that's what it was called.
I know
nobody saw
way too much useless bar information for trivia. Anyway, so but honestly, to know that movie was because it's an important thing, because it provoked, like you're saying, Brendan, these rule changes in the Academy.
Yeah.
And so the Academy looked into it, and Variety, along with Hollywood Reporter, everybody else, reported that Karla actually, like, all this is not true.
Yeah.
And that this was looked into, and it's basically like she didn't violate anything either. Karla's saying this because none of this is real, and it's baseless.
Yeah.
Well, that really pissed off the wonderful people of Brazil. And I want to make clear, the people of Brazil are very lovely people. You do not want to say anything bad about the people of Brazil. Brazil is the number one country in the world, and I will not, because I don't want them to go after me. So Brazil, you rock,
the best.
roll,
Yeah.
everything about you, love you, not being facetious. I would live there if you allowed me to. Okay. I will name my first kid Brazil. How about that? Okay. So that being said, I don't think a lot of the people in Brazil really appreciated what they said about Fernando Torres, nor thought that it was particularly the right punishment.
Sure.
So people did an old-fashioned deep dive into Karla Sofía Gascón's Twitter and found potentially some of the most alarming tweets, disparaging pretty much every racial group, every sex and gender you could possibly slander under the sun.
Bad.
I mean, there was ones that hit at her own co-star Selena Gomez a couple years ago. There was one that fat shamed Adele. There was one that sympathized with Hitler.
Which I have it here. Let me read this just to emphasize how bad this is.
Yeah.
The tweet says, "This is the same old story. Black slaves and women in the kitchen, but it is my opinion and it must be respected. I do not understand so much World War against Hitler. He simply had his opinion of the Jews. Well, that's how the world goes." That's the end of the tweet.
Yeah.
What? He just had his opinion of the Jews? Wow.
Yeah, it was not
wasn't a very good opinion. We can all agree with that, as the history books would tell us.
That probably should have been a draft. But then there was obviously the George Floyd tweets that
those
were
as well. Yeah.
extremely racist, and she just went after everybody. And but there wasn't like these, again, they weren't recent. These were, though, not like it was just a batch of bad tweets on a really rough night. Right?
No, they were sporadic over the course of 4 years or something.
4 or 5 years. Yeah. These thoughts have been just out there.
Yeah, the Hitler tweet was from 2019, so it's not recent.
It's not recent, but
yeah,
just still believes that. I think that, like, we can change over 4 or 5 years, but also, like, maybe Control Alt Delete if you know you're going to be in an Oscar movie, and
yeah,
like that.
Yeah,
but the thing about it was, over the week, is that they sort of built up, and the tweets then still stayed up after they were found and discovered and there were also a string of anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic tweets as well. So she really just hit you know how, like, they've got the Infinity Stones. she hit like the intolerant infinity stones this week. Like it was
and that's the thing,
impressive
because
to see who she didn't at this certain point offend, because it was like, damn, she got everybody.
And that's the thing. Like, it'd be one thing if the Hitler tweet or the George Floyd tweet, if those were one-offs and you had a bad moment and you said those things in a vacuum and you come to regret it, that would be one thing. But there is a plethora of these sentiments, to your point, Ryan, that were aimed at so many different groups. Yeah.
Including the Oscars. The Oscar ceremony was part of that as well.
Oh, like Afro-Korean tweets
like
as well.
BLM like showcase is what I think she called it. Yeah.
The mountain of evidence at a certain point that just demonstrates who you are. This is who you are.
Yeah. And
maybe you could change over the course of a few years. I do think people have the ability to change. However, if that was the case and you don't believe those things anymore, why don't you say that? That's not what she's doing. And that's the problem.
She's lack of accountability.
Down. I did nothing wrong. People are coming after me because I'm trans or I'm part of some minority group, whatever the case may be. She's using that as a shield to protect herself so she doesn't have to take responsibility. That's the problem here. In addition to the horrible racist sentiments.
Even her apologies are very, they're very shielding in a way, like you're talking about there, JD. I feel like her apologies are not phrased in a way that showcase a regret for her actions. It's she's apologizing for anyone that was offended by what she said, which is not the same thing. That is not the same thing. It's that refusal of accountability is really the biggest thing here.
Well, I think that it sadly is out of the playbook of the current president of the United States. This inability to find sympathy and empathy for others that are in a lesser position, and to demonize them and to criticize them and to patronize them and to pick on them and to say disgusting, hurtful things about them. And to your point, JD and Brendan, the then following couple of days where she has done 3 different apologies, and you can't even call them that, statements of remorse, which again, I don't even think you can call that. Like, they're just things to cover your own ass, for lack of a better
They feel
word.
very defensive or even passive aggressive in a way.
They feel like, why do I have to do this in the first place? Yeah. So it feels like they're pulling teeth to do this obligation of sympathy when it should just come clearly from the heart. Then she does the thing that made me laugh so hard today. Was the fact that she did an hour-long interview.
The hour-long, without telling anybody.
Without telling Netflix,
what even
anyone with Amelia Perez, and just went rogue on her own. Like, that's worked for her so far. And then, what's so also hilarious about this, she is literally acting like the complete opposite of what her movie is trying to say. Because if that is a movie about learning about others and accepting of others for who they are and finding one's true self and being essentially tolerant, she is showing how intolerant she can be, and therefore really just damaging her own career every time she opens.
She's killed that career.
I mean, I wouldn't say she's killed it, because we clearly see that people have careers one way or another. That's beyond their canceled moments or their moments where they are.
That's true.
All these actors and directors and producers that have been turned away from Hollywood because of their terrible, terrible actions.
Right.
We just saw Armie Hammer get like
a
casting
podcast
something
film.
recently.
Yeah,
Well, it's a Yule Bowl film, which does that even count?
Well,
I don't
that's
know.
fair, but he's still
He's
working
gonna
for
get
rights
paid
for
for
it.
it.
I guess.
but no, to the point is that to this extent, where she's a 2-time Oscar nominee, I don't ever see that happening again. I don't
Yeah.
see most of this happening again for her because, again, there's no remorse. And it just reminds me, and I know, again, I'm not trying to be political, but it just reminds me of when you watch The Apprentice and you see Trump and his rules are you don't ever apologize and say you're wrong.
Mhm.
And that's literally what you see from a guy who's supposed to be the president of the United States. So you see that literally from someone right now who's in an enormous position of power, who is literally the face and titular role of a movie that just got nominated for 13 Academy Awards.
And in many,
That's not good.
And in many
Not
ways,
good, Jim.
it's so ironic too, because while this is primarily on Karla Sofía Gascón, like we're talking about, we can trace it back to Jacques Audiard's comments that we referenced in the beginning of this conversation and his viewpoint on why he chose Mexico for this story and how, for lack of a better term, problematic that his word choice was, right? If anything, these actions are really showcasing what many critics have had a problem with this movie for so long. They're kind of proving the point of their ignorance and their narrow-mindedness, which is, and that disingenuousness is something that we've been commenting on with regard to this movie, and so many people have. If anything, it's just proving our points, right? And I just, I find that ironic and tragic at the same time.
I do too.
Yeah, it's I've come on this show over the years since the film came out in 2017, and I have talked about how I think Jordan Peele's Get Out is an all-timer because he tapped into something that to that point really hadn't been discussed as thoroughly and as cleverly and as smartly as he does in that film. But this interview that she does today that Ryan is referring to, this hour-long interview, it is straight out of that movie. That it is exactly what
It's right out of the
Get
second
Out.
place.
Because
I think Jordan Peele found his new movie.
there's a couple of things she says.
Hoping
where,
it's Jordan Peele and not Adam McKay. Forget it.
Yeah.
I mean, knowing it, if Netflix backs it, it'll probably be Adam McKay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
In this interview, she talks about how, when I have a spider in my house, I put it into a glass as to not kill it, to take it out onto the street. Kind of talking about how she's empathetic toward others. And it just reminds me.
That just can't be real. That just can't be
Out.
real. That feels
It
so.
can't be- or even worse, she says, I feel and very much identify with people who were thrown off buses for the color of their skin, with the people who did not want them to study at university, for the people who were hated simply for existing like I am hated in this moment, end quote. That's what she says. That quote is directly from that movie. If you didn't know the context, you would have guessed that came from Jordan Peele's Get Out. That's how brilliant and tapped in that movie is. And why you can't help but kind of laugh at this. Like, this is so disingenuous.
So you can't laugh too much at it because it's still
no, it's horrible.
No,
It's absolutely
I mean,
disturbing.
We're laughing at the ridiculous nature that this is actually happening. But the specifics
because
of
it almost
right.
like you read it and it comes off satirical, like it's from Get
it comes
Out.
off like
That's
a freaking Onion article.
yeah,
Like, that's
or
what this
Saturday
whole
Night
thing
Live
is.
or something like
This
that.
whole thing feels like the Onion has started the sabotage of Amelia Perez. Because here's the thing. We talked about this last week. Literally, we talked about this last week when I was here. Which it's wonderful to be back. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be this quick. Because,
We didn't either.
well, we were sitting here and I'm like, there's a bias towards Netflix. And there's this curse that they sort of have when they get out in the Best Picture frontrunner. And we talked about this with Power of the Dog, right? And those nominations came out for Power of the Dog. And like a week later or 2 weeks later or something was the CCA thing that happened with Jane Campion, where she screwed up saying a bunch of stuff, like a weird joke with the Serena Williams, Venus Williams sort of thing. And it was really weird. And then Sam Elliott started saying like, we don't need no gay cowboy movies, and like really started bringing up all this weird shit. And then people just watch Coda and they fall in love with them, whatever. Okay. We were less than a week. And this happened pretty organically. Like this wasn't, and this honestly, am so surprised that it took this long to find it, because people have been hating on this movie, rightfully or unrightfully so, for the last 3 months. So it is, but it also, the thing that drove me really, really nuts from the interview and everything else is Karla Sofía Gascón saying that she basically feels like this is a witch hunt out to get her. That this came out of nowhere, that some of these tweets are fabricated, which is bullshit because they've all come from her.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think
People were
she
literally quote tweeting them.
I think
They existed until she deleted her account. You could see them.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did she at one point in any of these interviews say that these were meant to represent certain characters that she was playing or something at the time?
No.
Okay, because even if so, that is not a valid excuse if you ask me.
But she basically said like that some of these are fake, right?
Yeah,
okay, and that and
she said they were fabricated.
Yeah, and that they were fabricated to a certain degree, which is just like, no, lady. The only thing that's real, that's 100% truth here, is the words that you wrote yourself. These translations aren't fabricated either. These are just the straight up translations. And you know how all this guys could have been avoided? It's the number one thing that really everyone, including the listeners, including us, could just learn from. Get off the damn internet and stop being on there 100% of the time, because that was her enemy, and her downfall here was the fact that she was heavily online, heavily reading any criticism, negative comment, and became this, started tweeting and making little remarks at people about all the haters out there can, this and that to Amelia Perez, and took a photo with the Globe and all this stuff. And guess what? It's no different than in sports. I hate to bring it back up, but JD always like, sports and art and all this stuff.
Time.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
All the time.
If you're an athlete and you start gloating, guess what your rivals start doing? They get that bulletin board material and they build that case. And when you start losing, they start dropping one after another, after another, after another. And if you really are hated and you're really despised, more will come out. And I feel like if she didn't poke the bear of the Brazilians, if she would have left Fernando Torres alone, we still probably don't. I'm not on this episode. I'm probably in bed.
Yeah.
Y'all are probably talking about David Lynch, and we're having a different night.
Yeah.
But because she could,
this is only an issue. I agree. This is only an issue because we've turned art into sports. Now, I'm not trying to.
Well, she made it into one.
Well, I agree. Like, if she was never nominated for Best Actress, if the Oscars never existed, people aren't looking up her tweets. We don't care. So that is part of it. But because this is the world we do live in, you're right, Ryan. That's how this often works. Whether it's with other sports fans or with athletes, people keep receipts. You see this all the time with athletes and other fandoms. And she is somehow feeling flabbergasted that people are coming after her or looking up these tweets. I don't know how Netflix did not scrub through her Twitter.
That is my question.
That's
how
absolutely insane.
Did this happen? Because in most cases, like someone who's doing this type of investigative work maybe finds 2 or 3 specific instances that they can cite as problematic. This is a lot denser than just that we're talking about here. This is really steep. This is very steep, which gets back to your question. How did Netflix allow this to happen? It's honestly flabbergasting.
And, even though they dropped the ball there, and ultimately this all comes back to Gascón and her tweets. She shouldn't have said what she said. Right. Now, with that out of the way, Netflix being behind her in this film. They should have done their homework. And once they came to light, should have. I assume they probably did. It's very clear that she's a loose cannon and is going to say whatever she wants to say anyway.
Yeah, she didn't listen.
But one can assume they tried to address that, hey, you should apologize for these tweets and take responsibility for them. I would hope that's what Netflix was trying to say to her. We don't really know if that's the case, but that to me is ultimately, well, I don't want to say ultimately, because some of these sentiments, the Hitler sentiment, the George Floyd tweet, those are really, really bad. But beyond the tweets themselves, she is doubling, tripling down on taking no responsibility for tweets that absolutely exist. Or at least they did exist until she deleted her account. You could quote tweet them. You could look them up. You could see them. There was a tangibility to these tweets that said the words that she said that came out of her account. They were not fabricated.
Yeah.
The tweet she said about Hitler is something that you could have looked up. You could have retweeted yourself. And instead of apologizing for that, it simply thinks that we're out to get her.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
Okay. And I guess to circle it back to the Oscars, Ryan, how on earth are they going to have her there now? Because the way that it's set up is that they're going to have the 5 other actors on stage.
Who the heck is going to want to be assigned Karla Sofía Gascón?
How are they going to do that? That's going to be wild.
I think that this is great that this will be the second part of this conversation. Because the first part is the first part.
Yeah.
And it is everything there. And obviously, my heart goes out to really anybody that was offended by this.
Same.
I mean, it's pretty much feels like everybody. So like we're all at least all together here.
I feel like we should also highlight. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but Sarah Haji, who actually did the investigative work in finding these things. So we should probably highlight her as well.
She was she was really the ones that found a lot of the Islamophobic, anti-Islam sort of tweets, and she had an article with Variety, an interview with Variety, where I mean she laid it pretty much out. I mean, there is probably the most damning thing to Karla Sofía Gascón's career in there, which is the last question was asked, what would you want to say something to her? And she said, no, she's a racist.
She's just a racist.
She's very blunt and to the point.
Very blunt and to the point, which is, I mean, just every right to believe that, every right to say that. And I actually have 100%, like you're saying there, Brendan, respect for her for speaking her truth and how she feels that way.
Totally agree. Yep.
Now to the question at hand, which is, how does the Oscars deal with this? So they're in a massive lose-lose situation here. And I don't think really anyone's actually talked about how these scenarios could play out and how it's not a win either way for the Academy. You had a historic record setting event happen last week where you had someone who represents a group in this country that is being marginalized by the current administration every single day for their right to exist in this country, which is
the timing of all of this is crazy.
It's extremely disheartening because I mean, trans people are losing their rights every single day. That is a fact. That is not something that you can sweep under the rug, or you can, try to play as party politics or whatever. That is a fact. And Karla Sofía Gascón in this movie, whether certain people in the queer community like it or not, I'm very sort of agnostic about the film and don't really care about it either way. It can hopefully be a movie to be a tool to help. And I hope so. And that's what Netflix intent is.
Yeah.
But you're right, JD. They have wanted to go to the format of the 5 past Oscar winners, like the Fab Five is what they've kind of called it over the last, couple times that they've used it back in the early or in the late 2000s.
Which is a great format. It's a great format.
It's a great format. It's a great way to allow past winners. And it's honestly, it's kind of like what the Grammys are doing tonight. It's a great way to celebrate movies. It's a great way to celebrate this event. It's a great way to celebrate the history of passing along these performances and entering an exclusive club of very few
artists celebrating other artists.
Yes. Yeah. And that's honestly that's kind of what we love about you should love about the Oscars. Like separate the competition from it. If those moments are pure Oscar at its finest and why they should exist in a lot of ways. There will never I will never forget when they first did this in the 2008-2009 ceremony and Kevin Kline talking about Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
And the human moment that provided, or the idea of like getting to talk about Melissa Leo or getting to talk about Michael Shannon, who were just regular actors at the time, not the regular veteran movie stars or a future Academy Award winner like we knew Melissa to be. And then last year was a lot of fun. Like it's really cool to see like the different pairs, or maybe it's people that haven't worked together in a long time. That being said, no actress in their right mind would want to go up there. You had people this season that refused to sit down with Sebastian Stan on an Actors on Actors to talk about his role in The Apprentice. To talk about a film, let alone and they had another film. I'm sure you guys have talked about this. They had another film they could have talked about in A Different Man. They refused to sit with him. You know what I mean? Very high school shit.
I know.
Right?
I know.
So this is very high school in the same way, only even worse. Because in high school, I didn't want to be around a racist either. You know what I mean?
Who does? Yeah.
And clearly it would be a terrible octave, because the other thing about those things is it's how usually that person feels about that performance, and it's glowing praise.
It's about reverence, right?
Yes,
and
it's about,
how are you going to be able to pull that off?
And there's no way they can do it. So if you take that away from the ceremony, and you also don't have the musical numbers like they've just announced, the show's kind of starting to sound kind of boring, and it puts a lot of stress, I think, on the shoulders of Conan O'Brien.
I was going to say Conan,
how he's going to handle this.
Who's got to handle all that?
You should just do a podcast episode mid-show or something like that.
I think so, because then they also are going to do a lot of stuff to incorporate about, like, for the fires and everything, and it's already going to be a somber moment to begin with. So there's that. So let's say they go that route. That's probably the safest route. Just make it a normal Oscar ceremony, do some clips, whatever. Okay? If they go that route, though, it's a calamity. Here's the other way. Because I know a lot of people are like, well, can they get rid of the nomination? Can they
rescind it?
It's
Has
not going to
that
happen.
ever happened before?
It has, for other reasons. It has in the past for rule violations. It's happened in the past for, ineligibility reasons. It has not been stripped because of someone's inappropriate comments. If that's the case, why nominate Mel Gibson for Hacksaw Ridge? They literally a couple of years apart, and they well knew about that. Everybody in Hollywood knew about it. And yet that movie got a bunch of nominations, and Mel Gibson was nominated for Best Director, and he was sitting there in the third row. So no, she's not going to lose the nomination. It also would look, from an optics standpoint, just from saying, again, it's a lose, because you're going to strip the only openly trans person ever.
Nominee.
That's
even
if it is for legitimately great reasons. You're not going to do it, because the optics of that also look terrible. Then you also have to look at it if she shows up. If she shows up and they win anything, this team has centered her as the centerpiece of the messaging of this movie. So her going up there and speaking on its behalf, terrible idea. That's what she did at the Golden Globes. She went up there and was like, the light will defeat the darkness, even though she's clearly, darker than Sauron right now. You know what I mean?
She's definitely part of the darkness.
There was something very meta about that speech that she gave now.
Exactly.
Seriously.
And that's the same line she used in the first apology or whatever, too. So clearly she's recycling
There's a bit of a script
bits.
there, I guess.
Yeah,
worked
just
the
like
first time.
again, just like Trump recycling the old bits. You know what I mean? So,
Good God.
but if you disinvite her, here's the thing that I think people don't get. If you disinvite her but keep her nomination, and you run it as if everything hasn't happened, there also is the people. I know that Scott Feinberg reported today from the Hollywood Reporter that he's talked to some Oscar voters, and they are not wanting to vote for Amelia Perez now in any categories because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a small sample size. That's not the
it's not representative of the entire
15,000
body.
people.
Yeah,
It's not.
Yeah.
But there are people that love that movie. And if you go and you turn her into a villain and say, you can't come here because you can't say what you want, and people start thinking in a weird way that it's blocking free speech,
Oh, people will vote for the movie for just that reason.
people will then vote for that movie, and then that movie could win Best Picture.
Yeah.
And there would be, and then at that point, the three of us will not be on Twitter for a full year, because the whole place will burn to the ground.
Which is why all these conversations,
complete meltdown.
all these conversations of what could come next or what should come next, as far as Amelia Perez and its Oscar chances. There are a lot of options here, obviously, that we're talking about here, as you laid out there, Ryan. I almost feel like maybe the best thing to do is literally nothing and hope that Amelia Perez wins none of its awards. And that will be the ultimate revenge plot then. And maybe that is the best thing to do, is to just let the narrative itself just dictate the course, and see what happens. Because I feel like that might even be the bigger story, knowing that a movie like this, which was kind of designed to be a bit of a trendsetter for the Oscars in the future, which could have been a great thing. It's unfortunate that it's this movie with this baggage now.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't go on to win any of its 13 nominations, that's going to be a talking point. And maybe that will be enough to set the story straight, so then something better can come along and set the right trends in motion. So I don't know. It's just a thought.
No, I think you're not far off there. It's saying like weirdly doing nothing is the right thing to do here. But it's also, I think it's also still kind of too early to see. Because next weekend is the Critics' Choice Awards, the Producers Guild of America, and the Directors Guild of America Awards. We will kind of have a good indication by then, based off of PGA, what is our front runner here.
Well, and more stuff might come to light. Remember, we didn't plan on having this episode a week later.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you know, that's the other thing is PGA voting happened after all these tweets came to the surface.
Yeah.
And Critics' Choice voting ended weeks ago.
Yeah.
So if Amelia wins awards next weekend, that's post the time here with these events sort of swirling. So there is a world that Amelia wins PGA and wins awards at Critics' Choice, or wins Directors Guild of America for Jacques Audiard.
If it wins at Critics' Choice, I did my part.
Yeah.
I did not vote for it. Full transparency, I did not vote for it.
Same here. But I think that you would then have a situation where the real responses probably would come from SAG and BAFTA. And if Amelia is still loved and presented there, honestly, you could still probably get away with it. But also, you have to remember this too. The Oscars are the same group of people that watched a man walk up on stage and slap somebody right in the face, gave him a standing ovation an hour later, and gave him an Oscar.
Yeah.
And nobody said a damn thing that night. So
but they did give him a 10-year ban.
Yep,
and
they
I
did
feel
after.
Like this is worse.
I know. It's like, Nick, we're still going to award you for the thing you're most likely going to win anyway. Okay, and now we're going to slap your wrist for it.
Yeah, I think that, JD, you're not wrong. I think like this is to the level of a suspension. And I wouldn't say like, but again, you have to let this sort of organically play out. Because if the Oscars, who are always reactionary and they're always late to going out and really making a big deal about these sort of things. I think that for me personally, I wouldn't invite her. Like, I wouldn't invite her to the ceremony. And I wouldn't invite her to the Oscar luncheon for the pitcher, the class pitcher.
Yeah.
I would, because I would say you're not allowed to do any of that until you show us personally the real growth and the real change that needs to happen here beyond a manufactured address that seems to be completely devoid of emotion and of any sort of remorse. And I think that's only going to take time. But I think there has to be a form of a punishment. But again, as somebody that doesn't want this movie now to win anything, or most people don't want it to, I she's not going to win Best Actress.
Right.
So, and she never was going to win Best Actress.
No, but the movie had a shot at a lot of things.
Yes, it did. I think it still does in 2 categories.
International feature and supporting actress.
Okay, then 3 categories. Because I think original song also with those 2.
Oh, yeah, that's
is
true.
Definitely like original song is because that category sucks.
Can we just give it to Diane Warren so we can end this friggin' nonsense of nominating her?
Do you know that if Diane Warren wins, it only makes her stronger? Like you don't understand. Like
I don't
category is a joke.
I honestly think Diane Warren likes not winning because then she keep going to all these events.
Well, that's why I said just give it to her so we can just stop.
That's the conspiracy theory.
No, but
she's paying people to not vote for her. She just wants to go every year.
She's still relevant all these years later.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to miss a thing.
Yeah, like literally, she loves going to those hotels. She loves going to these, like, getting a free brunch from these special places. Yeah. Like, I guarantee you, her frequent flyer miles absolutely insane. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she's loving it. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I guess so.
No, I think that those are the 3 categories. Now,
all right, Brendan, let's talk about free diving. Have you ever gone free diving?
Nope, and I never will. But I like watching some people do it.
I have never done it either. That is not my sport. That's not my thing. I think the ocean is terrifying.
I'm with you. I'd be scared to death to do this. But kudos to those who do this and also set world records in the process.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild.
Yeah.
The poster for Freediver, and that is the film that we're talking about here. There's a new documentary called Freediver from Michael John Warren. It is available to stream right now on Prime Video. You can go and check it out. The poster for Freediver is terrifying on its own.
I agree.
Go look it up.
I agree.
Absolutely not. I can never in a million years would you catch me doing that.
If you thought the poster for Deep Blue Sea looked terrifying.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, that's just not my thing. But that's what makes it daring when people do put themselves in that position.
Yeah.
And are able to test the boundaries of human endurance. And that's what this film chronicles. It is about Alexei Molchanov and his daring attempt to set multiple freediving records in 2023. It also pays tribute to his late mother as he confronts adversity and, of course, testing the boundaries of what people can do in an extreme sport like freediving.
Yeah.
So it does sound pretty compelling. I am very interested in seeing this one. I have not seen it myself, but I'm definitely going to add it to the list. It sounds really compelling. As we noted, it is currently streaming right now on Prime Video, so you can go and check it out. However, in addition to watching the film, we have a prize pack to give away from the good folks over at Freediver.
Yeah.
They have sent us a prize pack that includes shirts, posters, and exclusive merchandise. That's really exciting. And if this is your thing, and if you would like to participate in having a chance to win this prize pack, be sure to follow us on social media, on Instagram and on Twitter. And we'll put out some sort of post later on in the week as far as how you can win this prize pack. So go check out the film Freediver. Again, follow us on social media for your chance to win this exclusive merchandise and price pack from the good
Yep.
folks over there at Freediver, and we thank them for their support. All right, Brennan, let's talk about coffee. I love coffee.
That is like the
You love
greatest word of
coffee?
all time.
Oh,
Just
it's
makes
the
me
best.
happy. Just hearing that word
It
makes me
so
happy.
happy.
Yeah.
I love coffee so much that oftentimes, even after dinner, I'm so tempted to drink coffee even late into the evening, even though oftentimes I probably shouldn't.
Not a
But,
good
you know,
idea. That's
I
what
also
decaf is
have two
for, but-
kids, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
up early in the morning a lot. So, you make a great point. That is what decaf really is for. And Coffee Cult, we don't talk about it a whole lot, but they have a great decaf coffee as well. It's really, really good. I actually have it here. I don't drink it nearly as often as I should because I love the good stuff, baby.
You like the
I love the
feeling.
good
You love
stuff.
the feeling that it gives you.
Yeah. Look, caffeine is a drug. Let's be honest.
It
It is a
is.
drug. It's a legal drug,
Mhm.
but coffee companies are legal drug dealers. That's what they are. Okay. Let's just be honest about it. That's what they are. And we love ourselves some caffeine. I
Yeah.
love the good stuff as much as anybody else. But it's, the coffee over at Coffee Call is really, really great. They source specialty grade coffee.
Yeah, the good
This
stuff.
is not the coffee that tastes like it was scraped from someone's boot, which is usually
This
what
is-
you get at the store.
This is not defected.
It's not defected. This is really, really great specialty grade coffee. They source beans from all over the world. And these coffees are produced to feature these incredible organic flavors. And so depending on what the coffee is, you can have something that's oaty and chocolatey with brown sugar, or you can have something that is more fruit forward that
Yeah.
has strong notes of strawberries and blueberries, which
Yeah,
I also love. I
these are-
drink both sides.
And these are all naturally derived
Yeah.
from the source itself, which is what you want. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why these farmers are great at what they
Yeah.
do. They're not just planting beans in the soil and sprouting coffee beans. There's a science that goes into it. They're really, really good at it.
It's an art.
Which is
Yeah.
it's an art, and that's what makes the sourcing of these beans really unique, and what makes Coffee Cult so great. So the
Yeah.
coffee is really, really fantastic. You got to go check it out. Coffeecult.com. That's coffee with a K, cult with a K, coffeecult.com. At checkout, use our code ISF24. You'll get 15% off. At checkout, again, that code is ISF24. You'll get 15% off at checkout. Go get your coffee.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a great year drinking awesome, awesome specialty grade coffee. And we thank them for their support.
I think that they very much can win songs still because it's just a weak category.
Yeah.
International feature, it has to battle with I'm Still Here,
Yeah.
right?
I think that has way more of a shot now than it did before.
It might. Yeah.
I think it does. I'm Still Here, I think, is gaining momentum.
Yeah,
People
it
are
really
loving
is.
the film. And then with all of this, I mean, you guys noted earlier the sample size from the Hollywood Reporter is so small we don't know.
Yeah.
But there is a possibility that sentiment is aligning with what you saw in that article. Maybe that does affect it to some degree. I don't know. But I think there's a possibility here where I'm Still Here steals that category.
Well, and there's also the voting doesn't start till February 11th. So there will be a ton of Q&As where Fernanda and Walter Salas are going to be everywhere. They're going to push this movie. And Sony Pictures Classics is one of the best studios in the entire sort of, award sphere at specifically targeting certain sections. And if you believe that Fernanda Torres has a shot at upsetting Demi Moore or Mikey Madison or Cynthia Erivo in that category and winning the Oscar, you have to have a world where I do believe it potentially does win international feature, and it would be a deserving winner. And it would, because it's a really great film. But then also too, most of this outrage started within the Brazilian community, and there seemed to be enough passion to get a movie like that in. If there's enough passion to get it in and people start seeing it, I do agree with you, JD. Like, there's a world where it starts building enough momentum to upset something like Amelia Perez, because if the voters start saying, I don't want to vote for that, but I can vote for this movie that I just saw and has an important message against literally a dictatorship and like literally about, injustice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it is it's like the perfect anecdote to like this whole narrative, sadly. And it's also
that's gonna be
a really wonderful film.
That's such a key thing with all of this as well. The timing of these films with this new presidency and everything that's going on here, and how do people like, I think there is going to be a little bit of a drawing a line in the sand moment for a lot of these people. And how do they want to come across to people? Because on one hand, there is everything that we've seen with Gascón and her sentiments, and essentially saying that Hitler was fine. He just had his opinion, which is so off base. It's insane. Do they really want to associate with that, given everything that is happening in this country right now? Do you want to associate yourself with that? So to your point, Ryan, maybe you don't invite her. You don't have to rescind the nomination, but you don't invite her to the luncheon. You don't invite her to the ceremony, because we have to draw a line. We cannot associate with those people. And on top of that, you couple it with what I'm Still Here is about and pushing it back against dictatorships, which again, such a prevalent thing right now, at least in our country. I do wonder how voters respond to that.
Yeah.
And especially given that there's a narrative out right now that Hollywood is pandering a little bit to Trump and his administration, that there's a little bit of hand-holding going on for whatever reason. That narrative also exists. So how do you want people to see you? I think Hollywood has to make a decision here. And I think we're at a point, especially given how extreme some of these comments have been, you got to do something. I think you have to do something.
I don't disagree. I just wonder, like Ryan and I talked about a few moments ago, will doing something have the adverse effect and get some voters to actually vote for Amelia Perez in spite of it all, which then sends the wrong message, an act of what they might perceive as an act of hate, inviting more hate into it. And I do wonder about that, which is why I don't disagree, JD. I think accountability needs to be demonstrated, right? In some way. I just worry about the after effect of that, especially given the fact that movies that tend to win, while a lot of times they are deserved, a lot of times they're also a reflection of what is very sociopolitical for the time. And a movie like Amelia Perez was trying to be that, and obviously and ironically failed for all the reasons we talked about. But then a movie like I'm Still Here is even a better representation of that, and maybe a more accurate representation of that, a more sincere representation of that. So maybe that is the film that people, voters specifically, will then find as, okay, this is our security blanket now. This is our safety net, if you will. And maybe that could be the case.
If there's enough people, because for that to happen, there's going to have to be enough people to vote for Amelia Perez at number one, which suggests something about their political stances. And again, it's not necessarily about what their political beliefs are, but it is. That's what this is. We call it sports. You can all call it politics as well. It's all of it. This is very much a political thing. And if you're going to have enough people voting for Amelia Perez because we have drawn a line in the sand, she cannot come, then there's a lot less hope for Hollywood than we already think there is currently. And it's already looking pretty bleak. And
I feel like this happens a lot. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a weird pendulum effect when we see movies that get represented in a certain way. Sometimes we think, okay, Hollywood's in the right direction. And then I don't know, a Green Book comes in and wins Best Picture. Maybe we're going back a bit. It's like, oh no, Parasite wins. Oh, we're doing good. Oh no, Amelia Perez comes in. No, we're going back a little bit. There's like there is this pendulum effect happening that never seems to end.
And I don't think Amelia Perez, if it did win all these awards, and for the sake of argument, let's say it also won Best Picture, it's not going to hold up well over time. That is going to be a really bad.
It's not holding up
I think.
well,
I think the optics of it all certainly make a movie like Green Book less controversial as a win right now.
I think if you talk about it in sort of historical context, this is a part of its history now.
Oh, absolutely.
And
it's what people will remember.
So
I mean, nowadays people don't really remember the movie Crash. They remember its reputation now as a Best Picture winner. That's really what they remember.
Well, I remember Crash, and it's not a very good movie,
but also there's also the talking point, and some people might like this film. They might think it's progressive. I would argue that the film is incredibly regressive. That is a movie that at the end it denotes that being trans only correlates to tragedy. It doesn't fix your soul. That's the line that they use in that movie. And there's certainly some irony, sadly, tragic irony, given how all of this is played out. But symbolically, metaphorically, artistically, that is a film that is arguing against being trans. That might not have been its intent, but the execution of it and how it plays into stereotypes, the whole Mrs. Doubtfire of it all, that film is actively working against perhaps what its goals are. And at the end, it leans into tragedy in a way that says being trans, this is the inevitable outcome.
Yeah.
That's not going to hold up well. That doesn't hold up well now, let alone 20, 30 years from now. That will go down as one of the worst Best Picture winners to win. I think it's one of the worst Best Picture films to be nominated. So like
even just ignoring the thematics of it all, like you're talking about there, JD, as a movie, it's not even very good. We talked about this many times.
Exactly. That too. The filmmaking is subpar as well.
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing though, and we have really gone on and sort of we've hit all the points I think about Gascon that we sort of want to, and I think we're in a wait and see pattern.
Yeah,
with how
absolutely.
the Academy, but I do. I mean, obviously, we've talked about sympathy for anyone that felt offended and felt very isolated.
Yeah.
Picked on by these comments. I want to also say that I do feel for anyone on that cast and crew that of Amelia Perez, if they knew or they didn't know about these tweets, because I don't think it's fair to them. Look at someone like Zoe Saldana, for example. This is a woman that's been in this industry for like 35 years. She has been in so many big movies. This is her time.
Yeah.
It is her time to win an Oscar.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I don't know of another time when she's not going to be sucked into the bottom of the abyss with James Cameron making Avatar movies. For her to come out and be
nominated for that, Ryan. We need to start accepting those performances.
I agree. I thought Sigourney Weaver and Way of Water should have been considered, but you know what? They're not. And it's just how it is. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying that's how it is until things change. But she's good in that movie. I would even say she's the best thing about that movie for me. Maybe not written wise, but in terms of performance, she's doing things there I never thought she could do in her career.
Yeah.
It's a great performance. And if she won, I'd be so happy for her because I love her as an actress. And she has campaigned her ass off this year for this movie. She has really been the ambassador for this movie. And I got to meet her. Lovely, lovely person. Wouldn't be the person I think should win that Oscar.
Yeah.
Of the 5 in there. but the one I would be probably of the front runners, the more happy that won, right?
That's fair.
And I feel bad for her because she didn't ask for any of this.
No, by association. It's unfortunate.
These composers didn't ask for this. The people on the crew that are being celebrated didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
None of them also asked for Jacques Audiard's ass to be saying half the shit he says. But he's also, but
he's got off the rails too. Yeah.
But his comments are weird because he has, at least every time he stuck his foot in his mouth, he's gone back and apologized or tried to clarify. He's also French and a bit of a moron and a bit of eccentric. So it like kind of just, it's par for the course for him.
Sure.
And so I get it. I'm not making an excuse for him. I'm just like, he's French. He doesn't know arrogance. You know what I mean? It's part of like,
which explains why that film is so stereotypical.
Exactly. Exactly.
Fair point.
So, but I don't feel for him. You know what I mean? I feel for the people involved that are getting their chance in a spotlight for the first time and are on the cusp of winning things and are
totally fair. Yeah.
Like, because in a lot of ways, like, it's not fair to them that now people are going to judge whether they should give them an award based off of somebody's asinine comments that they worked with that they probably didn't even know about. And if they did know about it, well, I mean, shame on them for not calling it out, but also what can you do, except, you're not going to tell somebody to delete things because I could tell Brendan and delete stuff on Twitter till the day, but it's his choice whether he wants to delete it or keep, tweeting. Not saying that Brendan has anything bad on there. I'm just saying,
that's
like,
not a suggestion of something that's actually out there. I rarely ever.
Let's go.
I know, but it's just
Brendan J.
Cassidy.
Let's go ahead and
seriously, at Brendan J. Cassidy. Find anything you want. You're gonna find nothing there.
Brendan Cassidy 4K titties.
No. You're talking about that's not gonna get me in trouble.
That's not gonna get you in trouble. But no, I just but no, honestly, like, for real, I feel bad for Saldana and others that are essentially innocent in all this. And I think that that's not fair to them.
Well,
but it's just also, sadly, when certain teams in sports, they have somebody that uses PEDs or cheat, or whatever the case may be. Guess what? There are a lot of also players on that team that didn't know maybe about it. And they have to sit there and they have to accept the consequences because they're part of a team, right? You know what I mean? One bad person's mistake ends up becoming like becoming the whole team's problem. And that's where I think it hurts, to your point, Brendan, it hurts this film's overall Oscar chances, but they could also just ignore it. And the passion for Amelia Perez could be like, okay, we're not going to give it to the movie, but we're just going to give it to Zoe Saldana.
Yeah,
and that's where we
scenario. Then
that's it.
But you're right, Ryan, that those who are simply associated with the film and have no correlation to these unfortunate comments, that's just an unfortunate thing. And you can even take it further outside of just the film, especially for those who feel genuinely marginalized in some way, shape, or form. And you have someone like Karla Sofía Gascón, who is essentially taking her status as a marginalized individual and using it as a weapon. And that could then set even further precedent and unfortunate precedents going forward by even further association outside of just the film itself. And the whole thing is just so unfortunate.
Yeah, I know. It's really sad to see. And I do hope, because voting hasn't begun yet, as Ryan noted, maybe this next week someone can talk some sense into her and she can go on a genuine apology tour. I don't foresee that happening. When you bypass the brass at Netflix to do your own interview and triple down on not taking responsibility, I don't think that's going to happen. This has been a quintessential step-by-step guide on what not to do. But you never know. You never know what the next week could bring, because when we were recording this show a week ago, this was not on any of our minds at all. We did not foresee this happening over the course of the last 7 days.
I weirdly want to be a fly in the wall for whoever her publicist is, just for how they're reacting to this.
You fathom.
So a bit of
I actually am praying for that person.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
a bit of a side tangent here. I don't know if you guys remember collegehumor.com. I think it's called something different now. There was a great sketch it was called Chris Brown's publicist. It was just whoever this publicist was reacting to certain things that Chris Brown was doing. It was stupid things like, I kicked Nicki Minaj. And he's like, how do you do? Okay, now you're going to go on, do some talk show host. You're going to apologize. You're going to sing some of her songs. Then you get another call. I run over Maroon 5 with my car. It's like it's like, how do you like, I have no idea how her publicist is reacting to this.
I mean, clearly it doesn't even maybe seem like she has a publicist, because she's setting up
she
these
might not
interviews
have
on her own.
She fired all of her publicists.
I mean,
they're all out of a job.
I can just tell you this. Right now, she's public enemy number 1, and she's turned a movie that was already polarized
Even way more polarized.
into a weapon. And when you do that, like, okay, back to just like quickly the narrative about the movie. JD, you're absolutely right about like what that movie's trying to say and sort of represents, and how hollow that sort of all the narrative and whatnot. But then you just break it all down, it's just a really stupid movie. It really just is really stupid. But people resonated with its audacity. But at a certain point, when your audacity clashes with also how people will be perceived if they vote for it, because there's an act of defiance, and then there's also a genuine fear of, if they found out I voted for this, you know what I mean, then I'm public enemy number 1, right? And it goes back to your point about Get Out. I would have voted for Obama a 3rd time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to vote for Amelia Perez because that could get me in trouble. And that's really kind of how it feels. And so, but then you just have literally the people that don't like it. And it's a tier system, right?
Yep.
Like the preferential ballot is a tier system. There will be a lot of people, and it's going to matter in a tight race like this for Best Picture, where there is no clear front runner as of now. And every vote's going to matter.
Yeah.
It like, sounds like I'm in an election, but again, every conclave vote's going to matter. All right.
We're in a conclave after all.
Yeah, exactly.
Conclave is winning Best Documentary right now.
It really should.
How appropriate and fitting would it be for Conclave to win this year?
It really starting to feel like it.
Yeah.
But like, no, I could see a world where just, it's not even ranked. People just don't have it on their ballot. They don't rank it, and they don't put it.
Can
anywhere.
you do that? Can you just leave it off?
You could just like not number it.
So how do they count that then? Do they just count that as 10 in the ranking?
I would assume so, or you just put in an asterisk, or you just put a slash through it, or whatever. It could be an act of defiance. I mean, again, this is an unknown. This is an unknown thing that probably somebody's going to have to ask. I mean, there are times where people only rank 7 or 8 of these things because they don't see all 10, which is stupid.
Yeah.
And we've heard about that for years. And so we don't need to get into the fact that,
like, it's always a conversation every year.
Yeah. But I do believe that there will be a world when you start seeing some of those anonymous ballots. You're going to see this movie low. And when you see it low, it's just going to be an indicator when you get the honest ballots and people start talking. Even though I hate those anonymous honest ballots or whatever, and I can't stand those articles because I think they're a bunch of bullshit. You're gonna see a bunch of people have it low, and that will be weirdly a representation of that this movie is not going to walk away with 5, 6, 7 Oscars. Maybe we thought last week. Its max is probably 3. The 3 categories that Brendan mentioned, supporting actress, song, and international feature. And with each non-apology, each one of those opportunities starts slipping and slipping and slipping away.
Yeah.
Because there's other movies there's other movies that people like that they don't have to go out of their way to give it to something if they know that then the movie that they're supporting is controversial to the point where you can't defend it anymore. And that's where Amelia Perez is currently at right now.
Yeah.
Cannot defend anything she said. There is no, well, ooh, no.
There is no but.
Nope. There is none of that. It is a just definitive, and if you vote for it, guess what? You're kind of a horrible person. And people don't like to vote for being a horrible person. Because even with Green Book, they felt like they solved racism that night. You know what I mean? Like for real. And that movie
again.
They felt like they did the right thing. And there wasn't and also the movie was a success. Like it made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So they could justify it by saying, you know what?
Yeah.
Audiences liked it. I liked it. We're not racist. Let's give this to it.
I would vote for Driving Miss Daisy again if I could.
Exactly.
I would vote for it.
Vote for it.
I would drive right with her to vote for it. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that's the truth.
That seems like a tame comparison as far as sociopolitical comparisons there.
No, I'm just saying like, I love Coda. I will vote for that family. You know what I mean? I'll get more people in the hearing impaired community a chance for more movies in cinema. Even though Marlene Matlin literally said the other day that that's not happening. So yeah, but we made ourselves feel good. We did this a lot. You know what I mean? So again, they can pat themselves on the back for like those small gestures like that. You know what I mean?
Which they like to do. And that's been my talking point with Amelia Perez this whole time. I don't know who that film is for.
Yeah.
Because it is extremely regressive. So if you're on the progressive side of the scale, I don't see a whole lot of people going for it. And if you're on the right side of the aisle, you're obviously not going to go for it, given what we've seen lately. So this film exists for exactly what you're talking about, Ryan. For those that sit in a certain position as the not just the Academy, but awards bodies in general have done this for decades and decades, for them to feel good about themselves and to pat themselves on the back for going, look at me. I voted for something that is going to make the world a better place.
I partook in that. I
partook without really digging into Amelia Perez and wrestling with its regressive politics. They didn't do that. All they do is they see that it stars a trans actress, and
they just voted for the idea.
So they voted for the idea.
They also voted for the fact that because it's Netflix's biggest movie and Netflix told them to do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why did Maestro
the influence is strong with this one.
Right? Like, you guys didn't like Maestro, but guess what? It was number one focus for Netflix, and guess what? It got in. Like, when they are number one focus is their focus, it gets in. You know what I mean?
But they don't win a whole lot. At least not the big
exactly. So
at any rate, thanks, Ryan. This was fun.
No, for sure.
We'll see if you're back a third time.
Yeah, we'll see if you're back next week.
So I guess maybe to be continued. Not sure. Maybe we can add a question mark to that.
Honestly, if I'm back next week, that's not good.
It's not good.
So,
definitely not good.
So I think what you're saying is see you down the road, hopefully, because if I'm back next week, I feel like it got 10 times worse than this. You know
or
what
I should say,
I can't help.
As much as we love having you here, maybe we should say hopefully not, because I don't know if
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also,
we
like,
hope
how dare
to
you?
not see you next week.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you though. We'll talk to you.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You know, we love you.
You'll be
But
back
no,
at some
I mean,
point.
seriously though, like this is insane. I don't.
I feel like every year I it keeps getting weirder and weirder, folks.
It
And
does.
that's why I cover this stuff.
I'm just mad because I wanted to talk David Lynch, and now we have to wait a week to do that.
Well, you know, I've talked David Lynch, and you can find all that at awards
Yeah,
at InSessionFilm.com and
that's
at
your plug right
awardswatch.com.
there, man.
There you go.
There you go. No, it's crazy because Moonlight wins in 2016, and there's all these inclusions in terms of the Academy, and they make these changes, and you're like, okay, maybe things will start
get normal
to get for the better. Yeah, maybe we'll get.
And then
normal.
you know what the Academy said? Hold my beer.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep, they did.
As you say, like, there's been some missteps, as we just noted, but there's also been these really fascinating.
There've been some
highs.
like two left feet kind of dancing around here. Like,
No, look, I'm not saying it's been perfect, but since Moonlight, my point is to say that since Moonlight, there's been a steady trajectory upward. A few dips, but generally that's the direction we've been heading.
Yeah.
And it crystallizes last year with a phenomenal set of Best Picture nominees and generally a phenomenal down the board. They did great. Really, really good. So you walk away from a good show. You walk away from 2023 going, maybe we've turned a corner here with the Academy. Maybe the Oscars really is heading into a new place. That was very exciting, bold, and great. And then here we are a year later. And it's like, I don't know if I have hope for any of this anymore. Like,
and you know what?
Once again, Jordan Peele predicting the future. Nope.
Because
we
guess
got
what?
to that
You say all this
cliff
now,
and we just jumped off.
Yeah.
You say all this now, and then next year, guess what? It'll be back to normal.
It will.
I
be.
hope so,
Yeah.
man.
Next
I
year,
hope
when
this is an anomaly.
when PTA wins everything next year, and it's finally just like a simple year again, we'll just be like, oh, okay. Remember last year when like that Amelia Perez movie like drove us nuts for like 3.5 weeks?
Yeah, and then 2 years later, there's a surprise sequel to Amelia Perez, and then it goes on to win Best Picture.
Oh my God, yeah.
The pendulum effect. That's what this is.
It's like a Kill Bill Volume 2 situation. Yeah. You know.
I know that I'm biased, but again, because this is sports, nobody remembers who lost the Super Bowl. You don't know who lost in the Stanley Cup Finals.
I mean,
like, you remember the champions, you don't remember who came in second place because nobody cares.
I mean,
if
your
Amelia
team lost
Perez
that
loses,
game, you do, but
if it loses, I don't think this is going to be.
Well, unless you're Kevin Jacobson, who literally does a podcast about finding who the runner-up is.
Yeah.
Like, so I guess you're wrong.
It depends on who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and who the runner-up is.
I'm talking about broadly,
Yeah.
because I'm sure there are podcasts who talk about the teams that lost the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I'm sure that
we
also
talk about this
exists.
all the time. I mean, like, it just, I mean, like, I think to this point, I think that at a certain point, we are going to get past this Oscar season, and we're going to be talking about movies again, like regular releases, like you guys do, like every week, but like really good stuff. And this is going to be something we don't talk about, but much like the Will Smith slap, I do think that there will be possible long-term changes to affect incidences like this from not happening again, because this did technically stem from actor talking about actress, and it got really sort of murky on the lines with the rule anyway. So I do think there will be some introspection when the season's over. But as of right now, I just think that, like, short the stock on Amelia and expect a really by the numbers sort of ceremony, with probably Conan knocking out of the park, because it's Conan and he's awesome.
It is Conan.
So, yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm being a little bit facetious with my analogy there. I think generally, though, the more we move away, and let's say the Brutalist wins or Nora wins, I do think the Amelia Perez of it all will start to fizzle out. But you do make a great point there, Ryan, that it might not entirely take a backseat historically because of what the ceremony could look like. If they do decide to not invite her and she's not there, like, that's going to leave a little bit of an impact as far as like the ceremony goes, regardless of how many wins Amelia Perez has. Like, the ceremony could be deeply affected. There could be rule changes, to your point. So there will be some sort of historical impact, even if it doesn't win at all. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
At any rate.
All right.
So that'll do it. That's Amelia Perez / Oscars round 2.
The rise and fall.
The rise and the fall.
Did I win this one?
Perez.
Did I win this round?
Yes, I hope so.
I think you did. Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's cool.
At any rate, Ryan, thanks for being back. We really do appreciate you, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me back on. And as always, 4K titties.
4K titties. Exactly.
This episode.
Yeah, that's actually the title of this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's 4K
yeah.
titties.
T-shirts incoming.
Hell yeah. T-shirts incoming.
Yes. Where can we find you online, my friend?
Well, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find all my work at awardswatch.com. If you like podcasts, you can listen to the Awards Watch podcast that releases every Monday. Every Thursday, we do Director Watch. We're in the middle of a Mike Nichols movie series.
Very
And
exciting.
we're talking this week about Silkwood. Very good movie. If I do say so myself, very hard to find, but I was able to find it.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're they don't have it on physical media unless you want to spend $900 or whatever to buy a DVD of it.
Must be that good.
It's one of those you got to go find it on the dark web. And
you got to go Jack Sparrow.
You got to go. Yeah, you got to go. It's that movie is rated
Hit the high
R.
seas.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Get in your boat and paddle along.
Pretty soon there'll be a red room. There'll be a red room's version of movie torrenting.
Exactly. That's terrifying, Brendan. But anyway, go follow the stuff over at Awards Watch. That's usually where I'm at. And thank you guys for having me back on. And hopefully the next time I'm on here, I'm not talking about anything awards related. We can talk about a movie or something fun. Preferably nothing controversial and nothing that wants to rip the rest of my hair out of my head. So
Exactly.
We can only take
we'll
so much
get you on
stress
for
in
a
our
review.
lives.
Yeah, we'll get you on for a review later on in the year, and we'll go back to having fun for sure.
Absolutely.
do they have a new book club movie coming out?
Who knows? Maybe.
Book Club 3?
Maybe.
80,
Always fun.
90
Usually
for
those
Ravens.
movies come. Usually those movies release kind of out of nowhere. So I wouldn't be
90 for
surprised.
Mahomes? What do you think?
Instead
of 80 for Brady? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 90 for
Yeah.
Mahomes.
Yeah, 90. 90. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
I
that
don't know.
comes out next month, actually.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
All right. At any rate, go give Ryan a follow. Go check out his work. Really do appreciate you joining us again. Always love having you here. As I noted up at the
priceless.
top of the show, what's that?
I'm pretty priceless.
You are priceless.
Can't put a
That is
price
for
on your
sure.
head.
That's why we love
Exactly.
you.
Well, yeah. Well, ask the yeah. Well, never mind. I don't want.
Don't dig yourself into a hole with that one.
No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna let JD get us out of here.
As they noted at the top of the show, we will hopefully be doing David Lynch next week, so be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
We do have a review coming out this week as well. We're going to be talking about the film Companion that had a little bit of a wide release this last week. So we'll give that one a go. Chasing the Gold will have a new episode out this week as well. So there's going to be more talk on all this Oscars nonsense. You can be on the lookout for that. There'll be a new Women in Session this week as well. Be sure to subscribe to the show. If you're listening here on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can subscribe to us there as well. And reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can always email us InSessionFilm@gmail.com. Again, if you want to support the show, patreon.com/InSessionFilm. We actually are going to have some bonus content this week as well.
Yeah.
Because there were other things we wanted to talk about, and then this took over. It just took over everything. So we're going to have some bonus content that you can check out on Patreon or YouTube memberships or Apple Podcast subscriptions. All of that is available. With that said, we'll get out of here. Thanks again, Ryan, for being here. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the InSession Film Podcast.